Imagine, late 1990, South Jerusalem. A construction crew is cutting into the ground at a place locals call the Peace Forest. The blade of a machine catches on something hollow. The work stops. Below their feet, a sealed burial cave opens into darkness, and inside that darkness sits a row of stone boxes that have not been disturbed in nearly 2,000 years. Then the archaeologists arrive. According to the Israel Antiquities Authority record, 12 bone boxes are recovered from a single burial cave in South Jerusalem in December 1990. 2 of those boxes carry the same family name carved in Aramaic. The name is Caiaphas. It is the same name the Gospels assign to the high priest who, according to the New Testament, presided over the trial that delivered Jesus to Pontius Pilate. The workers had no idea. The men with chisels and shovels had walked into the family tomb of one of the most consequential figures in the entire Passion narrative, and they almost destroyed it. To understand why this discovery matters, you have to understand the place where it happened. The Peace Forest is a parkland on the southern edge of Jerusalem, planted on slopes that were once quiet hillside cemeteries during the late Second Temple period. According to the cited publication of the excavation, the cave belonged to a single family, and the bone boxes inside it were the family's ossuaries, limestone containers used for secondary burial, a Jewish practice common in Jerusalem in the 1st century. The site was not on anyone's archaeological map. It was found because heavy machinery broke through a roof that nobody knew was there. Wikipedia summarizes the basic context this way: 12 ossuaries were recovered from a burial cave in South Jerusalem in December 1990, and 2 of those boxes bore the name Caiaphas. The excavation that followed was led by Zvi Greenhut of the Israel Antiquities Authority. He was the archaeologist who entered the disturbed cave, documented the boxes in situ, and was responsible for recording what had been broken and what had survived intact. The Aramaic inscriptions carved on the boxes were subsequently examined by multiple epigraphers, the specialists who read ancient scripts, and those readings were authenticated through that scholarly process. The boxes themselves eventually moved from the cave into the collection of the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, where they are studied today. That is the chain. A construction accident. A salvage excavation. A name in Aramaic. And a transfer to one of the most rigorous archaeological institutions in the world. None of it was planned. None of it was hunting for the New Testament. The evidence, in other words, was not curated. It surfaced because a backhoe slipped. Now look at the boxes themselves. According to the Wikipedia summary of the find, of the 12 ossuaries recovered, 2 of them feature the name Caiaphas inscribed in Aramaic. Aramaic, not Greek, not Hebrew in its biblical register, but the everyday spoken language of 1st century Jewish Jerusalem. The inscriptions were not painted, not added later, not surface graffiti. They were carved into the stone of the boxes themselves, and they were subjected to the standard process of epigraphic authentication by multiple specialists. That matters, because epigraphy is the discipline that asks whether an inscription is ancient, whether the letter forms are consistent with the period claimed, whether the cutting is original to the object. When multiple epigraphers examine an Aramaic inscription and authenticate it, that is the strongest peer review process available to this kind of artifact. Imagine a quiet room in Jerusalem. A specialist tilts a limestone box under raking light. Letter by letter, an Aramaic name comes into focus on the side of a container that once held human bone. The room is silent. The implications are not. The name on the side of the box is, by general agreement among the researchers cited in the literature on the find, the same family name attached in the Gospels to the high priest who, according to the New Testament, handed Jesus over to Pontius Pilate. That is the connection that turned a salvage dig into one of the most discussed archaeological discoveries of the late 20th century. Evidence suggests the wider scholarly conversation around this find treats it as historically significant. It is the subject of a dedicated academic monograph published by Baylor University Press. That is not a fringe publication. It is a peer-reviewed academic press, and the existence of an entire scholarly book examining the ossuaries connected to the New Testament tells you, by itself, that this material is being taken seriously inside the academy. The bones the box once held were eventually reburied under Jewish law. The box itself remained. And the box, carved on its side with the name of a high priestly family, is now sitting in a glass case in the Israel Museum. And this is the point where intellectual honesty has to take over. Because as striking as the find is, the ossuary itself can only tell us so much, and there are limits that any serious skeptic will press on immediately. The first limit is naming. The inscription gives a family name, but that does not, by itself, mean the box once held the specific high priest named in the Gospels. The identification is strong, but it is not 100% certain. A name pattern of this kind was not unique in first-century Judaism, and the historian's job is to weigh the inscription against the wider context, not to declare the case closed by the carving alone. The honest framing is therefore that the box almost certainly belongs to that family, not that it definitively belongs to that individual. The second limit is what the cave itself cannot tell us. According to the excavation record, the cave was disturbed before the archaeologists arrived. Construction had already broken into it. That kind of disturbance can shift the contents, fracture the boxes, and complicate any attempt to read the original layout. The third limit is silence. A stone box, however carefully inscribed, says nothing about what happened in any specific trial, any specific courtroom, any specific morning. It does not narrate. It does not confirm or deny the gospel accounts of what was said inside Caiaphas's house. It tells us only that the family existed, that the family buried its dead in this cave, and that the family used the name carved on the side. That is what archaeology can deliver here, and pretending it delivers more would be dishonest. According to the Wikipedia summary, 2 of the 12 boxes carried the name. The other 10 did not. That fragmentary, partial signal is exactly what real archaeology usually looks like. So if the box cannot prove a trial, what does it actually do? It does something that, in the history of New Testament archaeology, is genuinely rare. It places a name from one of the most contested narratives in the ancient world into the physical record of first-century Jerusalem, not as a quotation from a manuscript, not as an echo in a later tradition, but as a carved Aramaic inscription on a burial container recovered in situ by a National Antiquities Authority. For a long time, skeptical scholarship treated the high priestly figure in the Passion narrative the way it treated many named characters in ancient religious texts, as possibly historical, possibly literary, possibly composite. The Caiaphas Ossuary did not end that conversation, but it changed the floor of it. After 1990, the family name is no longer only a literary artifact. It is also a physical one. According to the cited excavation publication, the find sat at the center of a scholarly conversation about high priestly burials in late Second Temple Jerusalem. According to the Baylor University Press monograph on the ossuaries, this discovery is now part of the standard discussion in serious New Testament archaeology. None of that is preaching. None of it is apologetic. It is the slow, dry, careful process by which a name moves from text into stone, and it is the kind of evidence that should make even a committed skeptic pause. The Gospel writers named a specific high priest. 2,000 years later, a backhoe slipped, a cave opened, and the family name came out of the ground. So here is the question that the box leaves on the table. If a name that was supposed to belong only to a religious story can be recovered, in its own language, on its own stone, from its own city, by a construction accident, then how many other names from the same narrative are still waiting under the same hills? The Caiaphas Ossuary does not tell you what to believe about the trial. It does not tell you what to believe about the verdict. It does not tell you what to believe about the man on the other side of the courtroom. What it tells you is that the family the Gospels named was buried in the city the Gospels named, in the century the Gospels named, in the language the Gospels would have used. According to the museum that now holds the box, that is the artifact. According to the epigraphers who read it, that is the inscription. What you do with that is up to you. We will leave the box where it is, behind its glass, in Jerusalem, with its Aramaic letters still legible after almost 2,000 years, and we will let you decide what kind of evidence that actually is.